Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Um, I guess I probably won't need 5 minutes, but if I do exceed, please call me to order. Um, First of all, I want to congratulate Governor Rotimi Amechi for the initiative in the organization of this conference. My understanding of this is that having presided over the affairs of the state for the last 7.5 years, delivering what I believe are concrete dividends of democracy, he is now at that point where you want to give an opportunity for people to participate in understanding the basic principles of democracy, what defines a democracy, what makes a society democratic. So to that extent, I think that this is value added to the work which has been done in the state. But I want to say, listening to both Jack Straw and former Prime Minister John Broughton, that here we are grappling with the distinction between formal democracy and essential democracy. Essentially, the appearance of democracy, elections every 4 years, political parties that look like parties but are not parties, the whole movement. That's one level. The other one is what really makes a society democratic? What makes a people behave like people who are in a democracy? And I would say that at the level of form, the level of ritual, Nigeria is a democratic country. In terms of, the elections will soon come 4 years after. You keep having these elections, you have political parties, you have conventions and all that. But in terms of the real essence of democracy, in other words, are people free in Nigeria? Some will say yes, but others will say, look, if you're talking about basic freedom of movement, freedom of expression, people are free to say whatever they like, whether anybody's listening to you is a different thing altogether. You may be free to move, go wherever you like, but I'm not sure too many people in this room would like to take a vacation in Yobe State at this point in time. But you are free. So essentially, can you therefore say you are democratic if there is insecurity? If there is inequality, if there is injustice, if people do not have equal access to opportunity, if your son or daughter can only get a job because he has an uncle who can make a phone call to a powerful center, can you say that that society is genuinely democratic? If people will not have access to good schools, to clean water, to affordable health care. Such a society would be democratic in the sense that people get elected to perpetrate the injustices in the system periodically. But the people themselves will ask themselves whether this democracy is worth it. And this is what accounts for 28% voter turnout, because Nigerians have become almost immune to serial disappointment on the part of those who they elect or those who select themselves. So we need to understand that there are challenges. Now, and I think, and I believe that the best way for transforming from formal democracy to the actual essential democracy is in a democracy, no matter how superficial it is, must then deliver leadership that can deliver good governance. If a democracy has a leadership selection system that will enthrone people of merit who can deliver good governance, to that extent, then you're on the way to progress. But if a democracy keeps organizing elections every 4 years that ends up producing, people who do not have the competence, do not have the interests of the public at heart. And therefore, the schools get worse, the hospitals get worse, the roads develop into craters. Then I don't think that you're making progress. And therefore, I think this is one of the reasons why the River State of today is perhaps the best place, the best venue for this kind of conference, in the sense that if you came here 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago, you'll be able to see the sharp contrast between what you have today and what you had then. And by the way, one is in a position to bear witness to the changes that have taken place. I have known the governor for the better part of 2.5 decades. For your information, he was my undergraduate student at the University of Prt13. Therefore, I'm not talking about a stranger. I'm talking about somebody who I believe I know. 7.5 years ago, you probably couldn't put this place to use because he probably had no use for a conference venue. He was out there in the field, waging a battle, I must tell you. And that battle has led to what I would describe as dividends of good governance, relative security. The schools are good, the hospitals are good, the roads have improved vastly. He hasn't solved all the problems. Nobody ever will in any society, but to a great extent, I think that the foundations for the emergence of true democracy in River State have been put in place. And I think that this is the essence of having a gathering such as this. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Your Excellencies here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm most delighted to be here and to share some of the thoughts that His Excellency John Broughton has given us this afternoon. I think he's giving us very practical rules on how to strengthen democracy based on his own personal experience in public life as a politician, as a public figure in his country, and in the United States. Well, he has said so many things, and we need not repeat them because they will be very repetitive. He was loud and clear. But one thing that struck me is about the issue of independent public prosecution service. I think we should strongly examine that possibility so that corrupt people do not get away with murder, do not get away with anything. It is the case at the moment. Some people say the law is an ass, and actually sometimes it is. When people in this country, people are looting the treasury, they no longer steal in millions, but they steal in billions. And our country is worse off for it. I think there is a glorification of that kind of tendency, that kind of kleptocracy, and we have to do something about it. So that is the key point I want to emphasize, but I want to put a footnote to all that he told us here this afternoon. Just yesterday, I was with my graduate students, and I gave you a very practical example of what we'll be talking about. You see, as an undergraduate, I went to graduate school for one very specific issue. I was appalled by the difference in the standard of living, in the quality of life between Africa, in my own country, and the West. And that is what made me to go study economic history. I did my research on economic history. I went into development studies. And that issue has continued to remain very pregnant on my mind. And once in a while, you have very creative ideas that tend to put an explanation, to give an explanation why nations are poor, why nations are great, why others remain at the bottom. And one of the latest books I read, just recently, it was reviewed on CNN about a year ago, but it was just yesterday, I put it before my graduate students. And that is Asimagus and James Robinson, How Nations Fail. That book blew my mind, and I had to put it to the class yesterday to my graduate students. You see, democracy is about contestations.